Akash, what are the key indicators that a staffing owner is ready to sell their staffing agency?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think selling a business, whether or not it's a staffing business, is a deeply personal decision. And just kind of looking back on all the clients that I've worked with in the past, there's really no specific answer why each of them sold. Many of them were in different phases of their life. For one, it could be, maybe you're looking to retire. Another could be maybe you've grown this business to a certain level and you just need that additional investment or additional push to get to the next level. We oftentimes see that with younger founders who are growing this fantastic business that they've built. They've gotten the business to a certain level and, they realize that it's going to take an initial significant investment to kind of grow the business to that next level. And oftentimes, for these business owners, it's 100% or the majority of their net worth is tied into this. So taking on that additional set of risk is not something that everybody's willing to do. So they look to a partner to kind of help facilitate getting them to that next level. So whether that be an investment, partnership, or acquisition to take them to the next level. Others are just burnt out by this industry. As staffing is very competitive. It's a highly fragmented industry, and a lot of these owners that we speak with are simply just burnt out, right? And so it's, to answer the question, it's a deeply personal decision for a lot, but I think oftentimes what happens is they are approached by a potential suitor or a potential buyer. And that is kind of the first thing that initiates hope. Maybe I should start considering a sale. So oftentimes we see that. Clients will tell us, I wasn't really even considering a sale until we started getting a lot of calls from companies that were looking to or potentially interested in acquiring our business.
How does a staffing firm attract that sort of attention? In your experience, what has typically brought on a conversation of, hey, you ever think about selling?
Yeah, I think it's, first of all, having a clear, thought out vision of what you're doing, a vision of what your service is, differentiation, your value proposition. So developing a strong vision, value proposition, service offering, and developing that reputation as well. Oftentimes, we have clients reach out to us that basically are telling us, we are very focused on this specific niche within the industry. Maybe it's IT staffing. There's a focus on a very specific technology and they're very well known for that. Or maybe they're a regional player and have a very strong presence in that particular region. So it could be any number of things, but, having a strong reputation certainly helps. And then, a lot of times buyers just are throwing out feelers. They don't really know much about your business. They don't really know much about your size. But they are interested in acquiring businesses. Acquisition is a part of their growth strategy. And so oftentimes you're just getting these blanket type of emails from folks where it's like, hey, would you be, interested in potentially selling your business? So we see that a lot.
What's interesting there is, and we talk on our second show, Insights, with my host, Matt Lozar, we talk about how to strengthen your business with recruitment and digital marketing. And for 143 episodes now, we've talked about that under the scope of how to drive new clients and how to drive new applications. I have never, in my 11 years now of doing marketing in the staffing industry, thought about all of the digital footprint that you're creating is also setting you up to sell and setting up your exit strategy. And this, we've now been talking for 3 minutes now, has completely switched a light bulb moment for me of, listen, man, everything you're doing is also setting you up for maybe 20 years from now. And owners have to have that logic and methodology in mind, right?
Yeah, it's definitely the long-term view. I think, one thing I would always, somebody who's looking to start, a staffing business or just getting, started in the industry, I would never really, focus on, okay, I'm starting this business because eventually I one day want to sell. I think it's really just building a world-class business with staying power, these things will just make you attractive and set you up further down the line for parties that might be interested in acquiring your business.
Is now a good time to sell a staffing agency? It's a tough market right now. So I'm sure there's somebody listening right now saying, listen, I need to time this, sort of like when I sell a stock, or maybe do I need to sell this? I was super into sports cards a little while ago, and I still am, right? And you're always sort of timing it. When can I get out at the highest possible time? Is now a good time to sell a staffing firm?
Yeah, I would never say, kind of what they say within the stock market. Try never, you can never time the top, right. You can never time the bottom, right? And it's really, when are you personally ready to exit the business? Now, I can tell you kind of from the market standpoint, the market has been down. We actually put together a quarterly report every quarter that just tracks M&A activity within the staffing industry. And last year, we were actually down pretty significantly. We were down about 15 to 20% in terms of M&A activity overall. And then just this last quarter, we were down 40% from the quarter last year in 2023. So, the market, the M&A market has certainly reflected the staffing industry market. The staffing industry obviously has been down. So it's been a challenging market, but definitely there still are transactions that are being completed. They're just, fewer and far between. And I think the majority of the transactions, at least now that we're seeing, are these what we would call the lower middle market. So companies that are doing revenues of anywhere from, let's call it 10 to 20, 30 million in annual sales, as opposed to the much larger transactions. And a lot of it has to do with just kind of where the market is, but also, interest rates are high, so it just creates the cost of borrowing is much more expensive. So it's more expensive to do these transactions. But these smaller transactions, typically, a lot of these acquirers, it's a lot more easy for them to do and have access to that capital. So it has been a challenging market. I think, over the course of the next, 6 months, it's always hard to predict where we'll be by the end of the year. But I think it'll be a pretty soft 2024, in my opinion.
How do you prepare somebody to sell, right? So let's kind of talk about sort of, and you have a nice overview of the process. There's a great video on your website, actually, that I watched ahead of the conversation here. It was a 5-step process, the 5 stages of the M&A process, right? And I want to talk about sort of preparing to sell. In that phase, what goes into the preparation of preparing to sell?
Yeah, that's a great point. So preparation is probably the most key factor in considering a sale, right? It's never in your best interest to all of a sudden be in a position where you now have to sell and don't really have a game plan, right? So you don't want to find yourself in that position. So even if a sale, a potential exit is 2, 5, 10 years down the road, it really helps to fully understand kind of what goes into a sale process, what helps maximize the value of your business so that you can focus on those areas. So what we oftentimes do is, we initiate relationships with potential clients, years before. Now, not everyone is, we're going to have that 1 or 2 years advance preparation. Often, sometimes it's just, a month or 2 in advance. They're ready to sell. They have been thinking about it. But usually what we do is we do an initial valuation or market assessment on their business. And this is basically us taking a lot of information from them as a specialist in M&A within the staffing industry. We know what buyers are looking for. We know how buyers evaluate these businesses. We know, kind of what the multiples are. We know what helps improve these multiples. And so we do an analysis on their business and we provide them with the tools that they need to make informed decisions. So it's whether, hey, I need to focus on this area of my business because maybe I have too much customer concentration. That's a potential risk that buyers take a look at. And so it's maybe, hey, I need to start diversifying my client base. I have too many eggs in this one basket. So those are certain things that we will, evaluate and point out to them. Also, it's, how do buyers structure transactions? So one item that, is often overlooked is working capital. So does a potential seller, know what working capital is? And do they know how it's treated in a transaction? That's very key to a transaction because it is a pretty big component of it. So I think just kind of educating our clients on kind of how companies are valued, what buyers are most interested, and really preparing and setting up so that your company looks very attractive when we start preparing it for market. So having your financial house in order is of key importance. Making sure the website looks great. So that's something that you guys are able to help with, right? That oftentimes when I'm actually even doing prospecting, I'm just looking at a company's website. If it looks like this website was built 20 years ago, I may just think that this business is, not the right fit. Maybe they're a much smaller size. Maybe they're not even really, in business or doing that much. So I think all these kind of things, just preparing well in advance is certainly important. It's going to set you up to, to maximize that sale when the time is right.
I still say the website's the first impression that you make on anybody, whether it's, in your case, a potential buyer, whether it's a client, a candidate, whatever it might be. We're all doing our due diligence, right? Yes, I might pick up the phone and call you and chat with you, or I meet you at a conference, or I talk to you, on the client side of things. Maybe I meet you at a networking event or a career fair, whatever it might be. We are all window shopping. We're all going to go to a website and do our due diligence. So making sure that you're attractive, and you've said the word attractive a few times now. I've written it now 3 times on my notes over here. Making sure you're attractive to a potential buyer, that's a long game. And that's something that, sure, you can maybe amplify with some steroids real quick, right? We can turn on a new website relatively quick, but the attractiveness at face value of your staffing agency is certainly a long game.
Yeah, one other thing, I think it's overlooked as well, is your LinkedIn presence. That's another thing. After your website, you just kind of, that's one of the first things I do with not just within our business, but if I'm looking to, to work with somebody for a particular service, I'm going to their website, to their LinkedIn, I'm looking them up. And oftentimes, we see that there's not really much of a LinkedIn presence for the company. And, I think just having that presence online, certainly helps. It's not a determining factor whether or not a buyer is going to find you attractive or not, but it certainly shows that you have a presence, and there are people that are paying attention to what you have to say.
You started alluding to having too many eggs in one basket, and you talked about customer concentration being a deciding factor here in some cases. Is having too many eggs in one basket a turnoff for a potential buyer? Is that a situation where someone say, listen, if 75% of your business is in one client, I'm not interested anymore? Is that something that you hear frequently?
Yeah, it is. So it does two things. So it doesn't eliminate all your prospects. Some buyers are okay with it because they have scale. And so a customer that is maybe 75 or 80% of your business may not mean that much to them if they're a, 100, 200, $500 million staffing business, right? But it does also, but it will, some folks just won't be attracted to that for that very reason. But another thing is buyers will perceive that as being a very risky business. And even if they are interested in it, the way that they'll structure a transaction will actually have the seller share a lot of that risk with them. So what I mean by that is there's a component of transactions or deal structures called an earnout. And so an earnout is basically, hey, it's a contingent component. We will pay you if the business achieves X over a course of a period of, let's call it 1 to 2 years. And oftentimes they'll include an earnout because there is significant customer concentration. And the risk to a buyer is if I pay you 100% cash at closing and we now lose this customer within a couple of months, well, that's, the business is going to take a pretty significant hit. And now I've overpaid for that business. So what a buyer will do is essentially include one of these earnout components, say, hey, I'll pay you less upfront. I'll pay you more in what's called, this earnout component. And, we'll see where you're at the end of 1 or 2 years, and then we'll pay you the rest of it. But we want to make sure that customer is still there. You don't really have that risk if you have strong diversity amongst your customer base. Usually I think of customer concentration as, any one customer, above 20% of your total sales, or any small grouping of your business over 50% of sales. So like your top 2 or 3 customers. representing more than 50% of your sales. That's what I would consider customer concentration.
Have a lot of calls with clients throughout the week. And I distinctly remember one conversation. It was a tough one. Last winter, a client in jeopardy pretty much of closing their doors because they lost one major account. And when you live in a world like that, it is an incredibly risky business. And that's something that I think we need to be incredibly mindful of as an industry is how do we diversify that portfolio, that client portfolio right now when it's incredibly difficult to grow our business and sell. Was just looking at the new report. Well, at time of recording, SIA just put out a new report of basically open jobs are down year over year, quarter over quarter.
Right.
I know you probably pay super close attention to that as well. Again, that was dropped on May 2nd at time of recording. But yeah, we need to make sure we're diversifying our clients. We need to make sure we're diversifying that portfolio and minimizing and mitigating as much risk as possible.
Yeah, customers are certainly kind of one of the key components or key items that buyers are looking at when evaluating the business. Of course, there's the financial aspect of it, but certainly, customers, it's not just concentration, it's the type of relationship that you have with your customers. So what I mean by the type of relationship is, are you working directly with that customer, or are you working through some kind of, some third party MSP or VMS where you don't have that direct customer communication, where you're not able to reach out to the hiring managers. So, it's increasingly in this market becoming harder and harder to have those direct customer relationships. So there's got to be some differentiation. But having that direct relationships, not only it becomes, more profitable, the business that you're doing, but also the stickiness of those customer relationships is better. And so buyers will certainly look at not just, how much is coming from one particular customer, because you could have a lot, like you said, 75% with one customer. But if you have a direct relationship, you've been working with them for a long time, the relationship is really sticky, maybe it's multiple touch points within that customer, all those things, help. When a buyer might evaluate, kind of the riskiness of a customer.
How do we maintain that relationship post-sale? So let's say I have the relationship. I'm now getting out of the business. I'm looking to sell. How do we make sure that relationship is sticky post-sale?
Yeah, so that's a
right, because I can see you wanting to buy the company, but if I have that relationship and now I'm not here anymore giving you a phone call, now what?
Absolutely. And a lot of times the owners are that kind of key point of contact for their customers. They are the account manager and they have that relationship. And so in that particular situation, a buyer will want to have that owner stay on for some transition period. Maybe it's a couple months, maybe it's up to 6 months, but essentially they'll want to pass that relationship on to another key individual within the organization. But certainly that's something to think about when you're considering a sale, is that you really want to, I wouldn't say distance yourself from the business, but you don't want to make yourself so key to the business, so key to the operations, particularly if you're looking to exit right after a sale. If you're looking to, some of our younger founders that are looking to, they're just looking for that additional kind of investment, but they're looking to stay on with the business. That's a different scenario. But if you're looking, hey, once I sell this business, I want to completely exit from it. I want to, lay on a beach somewhere. Right. I don't want to have to go into the office anymore. If that's what you want to do, you have to make sure that you're setting up the business in a way that it's not fully dependent on you, because a buyer will look at that and say, hey, we need to keep you on for a certain period of time. Otherwise, we're not going to do it. It's going to become contingent upon you staying there for some period of time.
Let's talk about the internal team. So internal team is loyal to an owner. They're loyal to management. We know people usually stick with an organization because of the people they work with more so than the work they do. So if that's the case, how do we prepare our team in an exit strategy?
Yeah. So that's one thing that founders typically, they want to hold off on, sharing that they're, potentially looking at a sale until the very end. And oftentimes it's a conversation that I have with them. They ask me, hey, Akash, when's the right time to tell my team? We have these potential buyers here. We don't know if we're actually going to end up with a sale. We don't want to disrupt the business. That's the biggest thing. Owners do not want to do anything to potentially disrupt the business. And potential acquisition, people get scared, right? They get scared of change. What's going to happen with my job? Is it going to be secure? Will I still have a job? And so oftentimes what clients will do is they keep it close to, potential sale close to them. They don't share it with any of their employees. They only send the message to them, towards the very end of a sale process. And if they're sharing this with anybody, they're typically only sharing it with the top one or two people within the organization. But that's something that it's often challenging because, like I said, they don't want to do anything to disrupt the business. The deal hasn't quite closed yet. So, there are situations where, they don't want to share this with their team, and then the deal actually falls apart or doesn't go through. And so just, one of the things that buyers will want to know is kind of a lot about your team, the strength of your team. And oftentimes what will happen is towards the end of it, they'll ask to speak with the key team members, just let them know, hey, we're coming in. We're not going to disrupt anything in the business. Everything will stay the same. You'll keep your same role. You're just going to have additional opportunities to grow personally and professionally.
Very good. For someone listening right now who's considering this, what advice, and I mean direct advice, do you have for them going through the process?
Yeah, start early. Like I mentioned earlier, you never want to be in a position where you're forced to sell or in a position where you have to sell and, you don't have that time to prepare. I know it's self-serving, but, reaching out to individuals like me who know how the M&A process is done, know how companies are valued, and specifically, those that work within the staffing industry or have some experience with M&A within the staffing industry. So they can tell you kind of who the potential buyers might be. They know how to, develop marketing materials or how to market your specific business. They know what buyers are looking for. They know how to structure transactions, and they can also point you to other advisors that you're going to need within the M&A process, like M&A attorneys, tax accountants that are going to help you along the way through the process. So certainly reaching out to folks like me who could also provide you with a valuation on your business, kind of, hey, in this moment in time, this is where the market is. This is how the business, likely is going to be valued. And these are the potential types of buyers that would be interested in this business. So really understanding how your business is valued and where you are currently in the market.
Let's talk about momentum for a second. And if somebody's listening right now, and please use this opportunity to plug yourself and plug the organization. If someone's listening right now and they're saying, hey, I don't know what the heck we're worth, but I'd love to know. I'd love to know that valuation. How might you help in that situation?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to, anybody that's watching this podcast, I'd be more than happy to offer. What we do is typically what we call a marketability assessment and valuation opinion. So it's where we ask for, not a ton of information, but just enough to give us a pretty good idea of where the company is going to fall in the current market conditions from a valuation perspective. We don't just share kind of the value range, but also how your transaction might be structured, the different components that might be included in your transaction structure, and the potential buyers that might be interested in your specific type of business. We're also talking about how companies are valued, the working capital I mentioned or touched on, how working capital is treated in the transaction. So it gives you all the tools that you need to kind of make an informed decision, whether it's, a good time for you now, whether you need to continue focusing on certain aspects of your business, or maybe it's, hey, let's just focus on growing the business. And, maybe in a year, let's go ahead and do this exercise again and see where we are then.
Plan. So I love having the conversation, figuring out, hey, here's where we're at. If you wanted to go through with it, here's what we could potentially get and where the path that we can go down, but also the strategic advice to say, listen, here's how you can sort of clean some things up. Here's how we can improve, modify so that when you do go to market, that valuation is a little bit higher, or in your words, you've said a few times, how you can become more attractive to the potential buyer.
Absolutely. And for us, it's really relationship building. So we offer this thing on a fully complementary basis. So it's really, hey, this is where we see your business. These are the things that you can maybe work on. These are the risks that a buyer will see. And maybe we can focus on these areas. We're going to give you all the tools to help try to maximize value when that time is right. So that's really what we're looking to do in that document or that exercise.
Akash, I wanted to ask you one more question here before I let you go and get to the rapid fire round. Are there buyers right now? I know you said that, I think you said the industry quarter, if we look annually, right? So Q1 compared to Q1 of last year is down in the M&A space about 40%. I'm obviously not asking you to name names, but in your experience and in your research and in your line of work right now, are there potential buyers who are actively looking to acquire more staffing firms?
Yeah, just as part of our business, because, we're known for, kind of advising and representing founders that are looking to sell. So we work primarily on what we would call the sell side. So we often, pretty much regularly, weekly, we have buyers reaching out to us. Akash, what are you working on currently? These are the types of businesses that we're interested in acquiring. So the market or the buyer appetite is still there. I was actually just at the Staffing Industry Analyst Conference that they had in Vegas about a month ago. And most of the time while I'm there, I'm speaking with potential acquirers, and they're, the appetite is still there. They're just looking for businesses that, have a specific type of niche or differentiation that, have been able to weather the storm. But the buyer appetite is really still there. So that was something, even though the market is down, buyers are waiting patiently. It's still in their acquisition or their growth strategy. So there certainly are buyers still out there that are actively looking.
He's Akash Taneja, the founder and managing partner of Momentum Advisory Partners. Akash, before I let you go, I how to run you through the rapid fire round, if you got a couple seconds.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
One book that has fundamentally changed your life.
One book, I would say Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I don't know if you're familiar with Marcus Aurelius. Looks like you may be pointing to that book or looking for that book on your bookshelf. But, I've always, or historically, I was a very, anxious person. I would stress out a lot. And I think just reading that book, taught me to, that I can only control what I can control, and to focus on just doing really good work, and things will happen as they happen, and not to, try to make things happen that are outside of my, control. And so that's been something that has helped me both personally and professionally. So I would say that would be the one book that has certainly changed my life for the better.
So you're the first person who's mentioned that on the show. I absolutely love that book, and really that compilation, I guess, of pieces. I went through a phase where I would basically wake up every morning and I would read maybe just one or two pages, and then sort of have this like self-reflection period, because in my mind, reading too much of it was a little overwhelming for me. But if you can sit down with just, one, let's call it a passage, and then kind of reflect, figure out where that's going to kind of take you for the day. Incredible framing. I was trying to find it. If you're watching the video, I was trying to find it on my bookshelf. It's not up here. It's downstairs it's actually on my nightstand, because I got back into that process. So very, very good book.
Yes, it's not the easiest read. I've probably read it about 5 or 6 times, but like you said, just kind of focusing on certain passages that resonate with you. And so, it's one of the greatest books. I believe
the reason that I started reading it too was because Blake McCoskey from Tom's, so the founder of Tom's, recommended that as a book that changed his life. Not that I've spoken to him, but I think I caught it in a video that he did or an interview that he did. And listeners of the show, as much as I'm asking our guests for books that can influence your day-to-day and fundamentally change your life, I'm really just trying to grow my own book library myself, right? I can say this is for you, but let's be honest, I buy all these books too, so this is really for me. But fantastic book, and like I said, first person to say it on the show, and very, very good. I appreciate that. One piece of advice for somebody just starting in the staffing and recruiting industry.
Yeah, I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier. It's not starting a business to sell, but it's building a world-class organization with a very thought-out value proposition, service offering, focusing on growing a world-class business. And down the line, when it does come time to, think about a potential exit or additional investment into the business, the suitors will come, right? You're just going to have built a really attractive business by really just focusing on building something with staying power, right? And so I think it's not focusing on, hey, I'm going to build a staffing company to sell it one day. It's really, I'm going to build this world-class organization. We're going to put a lot of people to work. Eventually when it does come time, you're going to have people reaching out to you, that are interested.
Akash, take a minute to tell us about Momentum Advisory Partners.
Yeah, Momentum Advisory Partners, I started it 3 years ago or a little over 3 years ago in July of 2020. We're a founder-focused M&A advisory firm with a specific focus in the staffing industry. So we primarily work with founders, what we call on the sell side, so owners that are looking to exit. And we've actually completed 10 transactions within the space. So 10 transactions since our founding. I actually started my career about 15 years ago with a very similar firm. So my experience within the staffing industry isn't just 3 years. It actually goes back a little over 15 years. And so what we're doing is we're advising, representing founders, owners of staffing organizations in a sale. And that's really who we are, what we do. I like to think that because we have a specialization that we know the industry so well, it's led to the majority of our success. So that's just a little bit about who we are.
Again, he's Akash Taneja, founder of Momentum Advisory Partners. Akash, can't thank you enough for coming on this episode and taking the stage with me. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Fred. Appreciate it.